Now, we've gone from banking to impact investing to university to utilities, and now we're coming to the city. And it's a great pleasure to introduce as our final keynote speaker of the morning, the leader of Glasgow City Council, Councillor Susan Aitken.
Thanks very much, Greg. I think I'm still safe in saying good morning, everyone, but I'm very conscious that I'm the person who's standing between you and lunch. But I just want to take a moment to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce team and the partners they've worked with in putting this event together. I hope it will be the first of a regular thing in the city. It's absolutely fantastic, and I'm particularly pleased that they're using not usual suspect venues and getting us out and about in the city more outside of the city centre in fantastic places like this and in SWG3 last night. It's actually almost exactly 4 years that we learned that Glasgow was in the running to host COP26. And we realised very quickly, and I think this has been touched on by a few folk already, that that host city status was going to be an awful lot more than just staging an event, even though that in itself was going to be globally significant. But actually the opportunity for Glasgow as host city and the responsibility that we had as host city was absolutely pivotal, a generational moment for the planet, but also for us, a chance to build on the unprecedented international profile that COP26 was bringing us to drive forward our own sustainability ambitions for our citizens, our communities and our businesses, but also to promote and put front and centre in the conversations about the climate emergency, the agendas that we thought were particularly important. And those were the critical importance of cities in defining and delivering the solutions to reducing emissions and the inseparability of climate and social justice. Making sure that we leverage the huge sums that are going to be invested in the coming years to decarbonise, to simultaneously tackle long-standing social and economic inequalities, whether those are in the global south or whether they're in highly developed post-industrial cities like Glasgow. And our past as a city has taught us that to successfully change and adapt, our economy is absolutely part of the solution without ensuring that the economy is front and centre of the climate agenda. Then all the talk of the just transition will be just that. It will be just talk. And we also know that if we get it right, transitioning to net zero is our greatest opportunity for economic and social transformation. And from the get-go in our COP26 journey, which we're still very much on, we knew we had to seize that opportunity to build on Glasgow's growing reputation as an international centre of progress, of innovation, of investment and opportunity, and demonstrate that in a world of changing economies, we're a city that's already successfully demonstrating our capability and our capacity for change. And at COP27 last November, it was really clear with every conversation that we had that Glasgow is now seen by the world as a globally leading city on climate action. A globally leading city on climate action despite some of the very specific barriers and challenges that we face as a post-industrial city. But not least in the area of defining and sourcing the investments that cities need to finance the delivery of real climate interventions in our communities. Glasgow's founding membership of the Cities Commission for Climate Investment, or 3CI, which is chaired by our host today, Professor Greg Clark, and of which I'm a board member, is given us a shared platform with other cities and local authorities across these islands to drive this critical agenda and promote our investment pipeline in a way that provides real credibility with major institutional investors. I spent much of last week with the Glasgow team in Leeds at UK Reef. For those of you who are maybe not aware of that yet, it's a new major real estate event. It's a UK equivalent of MIPIM essentially, only it's in West Yorkshire rather than the French Riviera, which is handy, easier to get to. But when we were down there at UK Reef, we had really good conversations with household name investors about Glasgow's green investment plans. With every conversation that we have, our understanding grows of the practical steps that we need to take as a city and as a city administration and city council to really shape those collaborations between public and private sector to drive investment into the delivery of climate interventions at the pace and scale that the planet needs and that we need as a city and indeed as a nation in Scotland to meet the targets that we've set ourselves. Events like UK Reef are absolutely crucial opportunities to promote Glasgow and our priorities, and not just those large-scale climate interventions like mass retrofit of our housing stock, for example, but also things like investment into our city centre, which is right now undergoing its own transition to an environmentally and economically sustainable future. We've got transformational investments on the horizon from partners like Landsec, like Sovereign Centros, Bruntwood SciTech, to name just a few. But we also have got the need right now to sustainably repurpose hundreds of former office and retail buildings that are no longer fit for their original purpose. And that agenda, that vision, and the practical strategies that we've put in place to deliver it for a vibrant, repopulated, repurposed and sustainable city centre are exactly the kinds of things that many of these global investors are really keen to talk to us about. We know that investors are actively seeking opportunities to provide finance to cities, but we've still got work to do on both sides to get us in the right space to make sure that that actually happens and that we're driving that investment forward. It's about creating an investable pipeline of projects that meet their needs, investor needs, as well as the needs of cities, of places, of citizens, and of planet, of course. That's where our challenge lies, and that's where 3CI has been pivotal in supporting Glasgow to directly link our projects to funding and to create innovative collaborations that will drive green investment directly into Glasgow's places. Where it especially helps us, I think, is in the potential for bundling up projects, some which are immediately and obviously attractive to investors because of their likely commercial returns, but others that have less immediate commercial attractions, but which are often those that are closest to our economic and social priorities. So bundling those together and delivering all of those in concert is going to be the key to doing this at the pace and scale that we need and to building those collaborations with investors. We know that we're already at the front of the pack in Glasgow. In the run-up to COP26, we published our Green Print for Investment, which is a portfolio of decarbonisation projects that the city region needs to deliver to meet our ambitious net zero targets. And that was a bold move into what's really a new space for a UK city, a recognition that the scale of change that we need to deliver is on a par with what happened in Glasgow in the Victorian era, really, and that we haven't seen on that scale since. And the Green Print's been a great calling card for us, showing not just our vision, but a clear idea of those rapid changes that we need to make in the very urban systems that our city functions on day to day. As we speak, we are working on Green Print 2.0, taking it to the next level. We're working with a panel of private sector assessors who are helping us to prioritise the most investable projects and to progress the business cases for those so that we can be really clear with investors and with other stakeholders exactly what it is that we are seeking the funds to deliver and what the return on those investments will be. Commercial returns, yes, but equally returns that deliver social, economic and crucially climate value. And that all of that will help to shape the type of finance vehicle that we'll require for individual projects. And we know that we're going to have to be innovative in some of the vehicles that we put in place to deliver this work. In addition to the really valuable work that 3CI is supporting, our conversations with potential private sector investors and partners are being really assisted right now through our partnership with the Resilient Cities Network, who are working with the international insurance broker Howdens to facilitate a secondment to a number of cities, among which Glasgow is in the first wave, of a global risk and resilience fellow who is embedded with cities to help us understand how to think about risk in the context of our investments, not just for climate mitigation, but crucially for adaptation as well. So our fellow happens to be a local guy, Kenny Hogg, who is enormously experienced in this field. Kenny's only been with us a few weeks, but he's already bringing a new dimension to our engagement with investors, drawing out some of the key role that they can help us play and that the insurance sector can help us play in de-risking those project bundles and giving confidence in deliverability to the investor community. He's also helping us to make connections with those big global investor funds who are beginning to invest in cities and looking to invest in cities. And it might also be through this approach that we can bring in local funds like the Strathclyde Pension Fund, for example, into this arena. And I have to caveat that with the point that it is not political administrations or the councils that make investment decisions for pension funds like the SPF, but the fund itself and its brokers. But it's certainly the climate space is one that we would really like to see the Strathclyde Pension Fund and other local government pension funds in Scotland being really active in. So attracting investment to Glasgow to enable that net zero transition is right up there as one of our most critical agendas for action and delivery right now. But it doesn't mean that we're taking our eyes off our own business base, and particularly the SMEs that are the backbone of Glasgow's city economy. The Council's Green Business Grants were launched late last year, and I would encourage all SMEs to explore the Green Business support pages on the Council website and see what we can do to support your transition to net zero. I'm not a fan of Dragon's Den, I have to say, but Deborah Meaden from that show also has a Green Business podcast, and she had one of Glasgow's Green Business Grant recipients on her show recently, and I have to say she was completely amazed that a council would do such a thing, that we would directly support our local business community in this way to make their own net zero transition. But we are, and we've paired the grants with dedicated advice. We've trained our business advisors to help local businesses access it. And we're also delivering, in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, the Step Up to Net Zero programme, which is helping businesses harness the opportunities from the circular economy. We know that this is a difficult journey and it can be a daunting one, I think, for SMEs particularly. And if it gives you any comfort, what I would say is that the journey that we're going through in the City Council and the really big shifts that we're having to make in our thinking and our action and our delivery around scale, around risk, around new types of collaboration is also quite daunting, but we know that we have to do it, and the more that we do it in partnership across the city, the better and more effectively we'll be able to deliver together. None of this, of course, is going to happen without the skills that we need to make it happen, and we are extremely aware of that. And later this summer, in just a few weeks, we'll publish our Just Transition Skills Action Plan, which the Council has co-created with partners in our learning institutions and our skills providers to get our workforce in Glasgow geared up and ready for transition. And that plan identifies the skills that are going to be demanded by the net zero transition. The obvious ones, like the skills to retrofit buildings, for example, and particularly our older buildings, our pre-1919 tenement stock in the city, for example, but also the skills to understand how to build a net zero business, how to be a circular entrepreneur. Our business courses also have new skills to teach people as well. And all of the emerging challenges and opportunities that are being created by what is an incredibly quickly changing economic and policy landscape. We continue to work with our partners as well in advancing our 3 innovation districts, nurturing the importance of innovation to our regional economic strategy, seizing the opportunities that they provide to actually shape our new green economy and to deliver the tech that we need to actually make the transition. We know that we've got world-leading research, talent and knowledge at our universities, and Glasgow is clearly positioned. We have a standing within the world's top 20 most sustainable cities, the second greenest UK city to invest in, and just at the end of last year in the global index of the world's top 100 cities for investment, with our sustainability agenda cited as one of the reasons why Glasgow is so investable. I mentioned a moment ago that we are recognised as a global leader in this agenda, and it's critical that Glasgow doesn't let that momentum drop. And as a few folk have mentioned already, COP28 in Dubai is not far in the horizon. And the Glasgow Climate Pact and all of the other pacts and global agreements that Greg mentioned at the beginning that have the name of Glasgow on them are going to be a huge focus for those discussions. And for as long as that's the case, the city that bears the name of all those pacts and agreement needs to be there, right in the middle of those discussions, cementing our reputation as one of the places where the social, economic and climate agendas all come together, getting that pipeline of investable propositions in front of the funders who are going to be crucial to our continued success. And earlier this month, I should also mention Glasgow, again, I think for the 7th year, hosted the All Energy Conference, which is an annually growing gathering of clean energy sector leaders, from global players right through to smaller community-focused firms and green energy charities as well. And I'm delighted to say that from next year, and I hope for several years after, we're going to take a step forward with All Energy and with partners like the Chamber and others to stage partner events around the city, extending the reach of All Energy into the city and indeed vice versa, much in the same way that we did with COP26, why Glasgow's COP was such a successful one from an organisational point of view. It will be timed neatly midway between annual COPs, and the new Glasgow Climate Week, as we're going to call it, will be a staging post and a focal point, we hope, for our shared progress towards our net zero goals. I've rattled through all of this this morning, colleagues, a bit, but I hope nonetheless you've got a real sense of where we are now in the city, the progress that we are continually making on this journey to get us in the right place, to drive that investment in and actually deliver the changes, deliver the transition that we need for businesses, for citizens and for communities. I think Glasgow does have a common goal, a shared commitment to change. We are underpinned by that common purpose, delivering a fairer, greener, healthier transition, one that will deliver sustainable prosperity and a sustainable future for our city. It is all of our business to deliver transition, but if we do it together, we'll make it easier for all of us, we'll make it more effective, and we'll make it good business for all of us in Glasgow. Thanks very much for listening.
Susan, thank you so much. Your final sentence, if we do it together, we'll do it faster, we'll do it better, we'll do it deeper, we'll have a much bigger impact. I don't think we could say any more than that. I noted 17 different things that you said you were doing. I'm not going to read them out, but thank you very much for taking us through systematically all of those activities. Now, we face what we call moderator's dilemma. We have a brilliant speaker on the stage. I need to check firstly, do you have a few more minutes?
I do.
You do, because we have strayed into lunchtime, so we like a bit of democracy here. We could stop now. We could have 5 minutes of Q&A with Susan. We could have 10 minutes of Q&A with Susan. Who votes for lunch now? Who votes for 5 minutes of Q&A with Susan? Who votes for 10 minutes of Q&A with Susan? Okay, we're going for 5 minutes, Susan.
I'm very flattered, actually.
Right. So there's so many questions here that are really key to what's been said. But let me start with an obvious one that several people have asked, which is, how is the council using its own procurement powers to, as it were, enable and accelerate the decarbonisation pathway through SMEs and other suppliers?
So I think this is one of the central issues that we are working on right now is procurement. It might be the trigger actually to unleashing a whole load of action on delivery on climate progression. Because it is a difficult one, and the rules around procurement require us to have that shift in mindset that I was talking about, not just within the council but at national level as well. We need to look at completely different kinds of partnerships and collaborations that allow us to move through that procurement process much more quickly, that allow it to be much more accessible to SMEs. And again, that kind of bundling approach of contracts is something that we're looking at and have already started in Glasgow, but we need to go much faster on. But we need to have that assurance. We have procurement rules for a reason. The assurance needs to be there. It's absolutely crucial to doing this right and knowing that because this is going to be a lot of public money that we're talking about potentially and a lot of investor money. We need to be able to demonstrate confidence that that's being invested correctly and appropriately. But we also need to go faster, and procurement is often too slow a process. So that work that we're doing with Kenny Hogg as our resilience fellow who's working with us, a lot of that is around procurement, about giving us that confidence to perhaps change our risk appetite a bit, be a bit more, have a bit of a higher risk appetite maybe around procurement, but to do so in a way that still provides that assurance. So I hope I can say maybe watch this space on procurement. It's something that we're working very hard on just now.
Thank you very much, Susan. I'm going to apologise to you because every question that I've got in the 16 that are here is one that could have a long answer, but I'm going to ask you to be very, very brief. I'm going to come back to the big one in a minute, but how will Greenprint 2 be different to Greenprint 1? Thank you, Johnny Casey, for the question.
So it will be more specific. Greenprint 1 was pretty high level. It was about big projects, big ambitions around decarbonising transport, decarbonising heat, retrofitting, changing public space. It was about saying we know what we need to do, but it was pretty high level. Greenprint 2 gets us more into the specifics. What actually is required for this investment? What are the figures that are required? Where do we invest it? What are the technical specifications that will drive it forward? What are the commercial returns for an investor? So it's getting much more into talking turkey, if you like, when it comes to the specificity of those investments.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Susan. Andy asks the question, what was Councillor Aitken's biggest lesson that she learned from the people, the organisation and the countries who came to Glasgow for COP26?
Oh, wow. I think the great thing, and it's been a phenomenal experience for me, I have to say, all of the engagement that we did with cities globally. across the world in the run-up to COP26, during it and since, has just been incredible. And the solidarity and the shared purpose between cities has really, I think, it's given me the kind of mettle, if you like, to make some of the bolder and more difficult decisions, because not all of this is politically popular. You know, there could be a few hills that my political career dies on in this process, and that's fine. And I think it's given me the courage to embrace that by talking to leaders like Anne Hidalgo in Paris, for example. If she can turn the Champs-Élysées into a park, essentially, into the middle of Paris, then we can sort out our traffic congestion problems in Glasgow city centre. There's not a problem that Glasgow faces in this journey that isn't faced by other cities, and sometimes on a much bigger scale. So I think it gives you perspective all the time as well. But one other lesson, I think, and I will keep this quick, is talking to the private sector and talking to potential partners in the private sector and learning how much more we have in common with each other than I think public and private sector often realise. And it's something I said to someone in conversation at UK Reef last week. One of the biggest things we have to do is all get over ourselves. The public sector has to acknowledge and realise that we don't have a monopoly in caring about outcomes for people and places. Actually, large sections of the private sector, our businesses, also care about people and places and want to deliver good outcomes for them. The private sector, I hope, needs to realise that that they don't have a monopoly on effective delivery of things, that actually working with us in the public sector, you will find that we're pretty good at delivery as well. And if we can come together in that sweet space where we bring together a belief in shared outcomes, a commitment to deliver shared outcomes, and a focus on effective and rapid delivery, then we've got the tools and the ingredients that we need to do this right.
Thank you, Susan. We're going to finish with two. There are so many questions here. It's unbelievable. I apologise to everyone. But will there be specific business-focused activities in the Glasgow activity at COP28?
Yes. I can't say explicitly what they are yet, but we will definitely be having conversations with the Chamber of Commerce about stepping up our presence at COP28. We weren't quite, so COP27 was pretty small scale for Glasgow. There was only 3 of us went, and we realised we were spread very, very thinly. A bigger Team Glasgow will be in all of our interests, a bigger Team Glasgow presence. I hope also working much more closely with the Scottish Government and going in collaboration as a Team Glasgow, as the leader of Team Scotland, if you like, but very much a business focus. I think COP28 in Dubai is shaping up, it looks like, to be very business focused. So we need to step up to that as well.
Great. And Susan, the last question, which in a sense you've already answered in your keynote, but it's got 26 votes, so I'm going to ask it. What more do you think local and national government can do to promote innovation within this net zero framework? Is there something else that's missing that needs to be done? I
think we can always do more. I think a lot of it is about looking, and Gary said this really clearly in his opening presentation. It's not about adding climate into what you're doing already. It's about looking at climate as the template within which we're working, and then looking at all of the assets and all of the things that we've got, and how can we use these to drive forward our climate agenda, recognising all of the benefits that we can gain socially, economically, as well as environmentally if we do this right. I think we are constantly need to do better on this and constantly find space. What I'm really, and I suppose I would put it back and say to businesses, please do come and speak to us. If you've got ideas about how we can do better in this, come and tell us. Because again, that partnership stuff, that collaboration, talking to each other, if you think that we could use either a funding stream or a particular service that the council is able to provide in a way that's more effective in supporting innovation in this area, please do come and talk to us. And there's some folk from the council here today, not just me, so find them and bend their ear.
Great. Well, we're going to have to call it a day there, Susan. We've stolen actually 10 minutes of your time. Apologies for that. Ladies and gentlemen, Councillor Susan Aitken.